Okay. Okay. Wait, let me think.
It's fine. This is totally informal. It's not a big deal. Take a moment if you need to kind of regroup and think about what you want to say.
Then the others in the middle of the desert watched her crying. That word choice of desert, or that's when the women have just been read the poem and they're and they're crying, or one of them's crying. So the choice of the word desert, I think, emphasizes the fact that their lives are just so empty. So yeah, now for plot choices, or no, now for the imagery. I've got the burning book, and it's got the Bible verse again, and then you probably can't tell what this is, but this is Dover Beach.
Okay. I believe
really
you.
The bad
cliffs
Dover
of Dover.
Beach.
I see the cliffs. I see it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I totally meant there to be cliffs.
Yeah, that's not what you're going for? Oh, well, that's what I'm saying.
Not really.
I'm seeing the cliffs of Dover.
Just this is the sand and this is the water. It was a last minute thing.
Gotcha.
But,
That's all good.
Yeah, so I think that that plot choice is really significant because
to choose that particular poem.
Yeah, and to have Mrs. Phelps crying about it, because it just shows how unstable a happiness based on ignorance can be, because the moment you start seeing what's around you, then you can't really unsee it, and you can't get back that happiness, that old burnt-in smile that Montag talks about. So this is the section for Burning Bright. One huge, big, blazing meteor that makes a pretty fire in space. Faber describes the world that way. And a world where happiness is based on ignorance and conformity is that type of like meteor, because it just can't last and eventually it will consume itself. So then,
where is that quote coming from? Do you remember?
I think that's either during their conversation or right after their conversation through the seashell. Yeah, that's actually the one I was talking about that I mislabeled, put in the wrong section.
That would come over there.
So then I talk about the right kind of mistakes. That's something that Granger talks about to Montag, because Montag's upset because he made so many mistakes getting where he is. But I think Bradbury's point here is that you need to make mistakes, you need to get hurt, you need to risk things, because if you just shelter up in your parlor with your wall TVs, then you're never going to grow, and so you can't really be happy. And my imagery for this one was the burning city at the end, and that just shows how unstable the world is when happiness is based on ignorance, because it ends up burning because they can't take care of it. Okay, so that's my first essential question. The second one I covered was what inspires people to resist authority. The quotes I had at the top that I said were kind of central to my argument I tried to make them something that applied to both essential questions.
So those quotes are, just read them again for me.
Are you happy? Consider the lilies of the field and the healing of nations. Oh, actually, I didn't talk about that one.
Talk about that one. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I had something that worked for with that question, but oh yeah, knowledge is necessary to make things heal, to make things better. and to bring true happiness. So, yeah, back to resistance of authority. Are you happy? That's the question that really sets Montag on this path that eventually makes him a wanted man, because he resists authority. And that emphasizes the fact that there's just a moment when you realize that the things you know are wrong, the things that people make you do are wrong, and that that's when you just realize you have to make a change. We shall this day light such a candle. That was the thing that was Beatty expanding on the quote that the woman who burned with her books, the woman who burned with her books said, and like her action was a very small thing. Like, I mean, she sacrificed her life, so it wasn't really small, but in the grand scope of things, one, like the fire, it didn't even really exactly do anything because she would have been locked up anyway and her books would have been burned anyway. But she was just trying to inspire others through even the smallest actions can make a difference. And then I'm not happy. Montag says that to Mildred right after the Beatty conversation when they're discussing the pros and cons of books. And again, it's just that examining how things are and realizing that they're not correct. I think that's the central message of The Hearth and the Salamander about resistance. So then,
the central message has to do with what? Self-reflection, with...
Yeah, self-reflection and how the
action.
world used to be and, yeah, how it should be. So here, once again, the lights that represent their Clarice's family, they talk about things, and so they just realize that there are problems, and then all those details that Clarice pointed out, like the man in the moon, it's, once again, just noticing things is the significant thing here. So then, in the sand and the sieve, consider the lilies in the field, they toil not, neither do they spin. That quote is about how, like, God provides for you. And so I think Bradbury, the way it applies to this particular question is resistance isn't necessarily a choice that you just decide to do. It's something that's natural in certain situations, and it's kind of inevitable because when the world is wrong, just God provides somebody who can stand up and say that. So something's missing, so I thought books might help.
Who says that? Give me some context on that one.
Montag says that to Faber when Faber's asking him about why he's resisting. So that's, again, just noticing the things that are wrong and just try, even if you don't necessarily know the best way to resist, it's kind of, sometimes you just have to do something, even if you're not sure it'll make things better, because you just know that they're bad now and they can't get worse. That segues me quite well into when you've nothing to lose, you run any risk you want. That's another Montag one, and again, just when the world is wrong, you need to make it right, because there's nothing else you can do unless you're just going to sit around and not be happy. So yeah, and here I have the book about to burn, because yeah, when you realize that your world's being destroyed, when you have nothing left to lose, then that's when you realize that you have to make a change. So section 3, the healing of the nations. I think Burning Bright is all about hope for the future, just the belief that you can heal the nations, because that gives you the strength to resist authority. It was not burning, it was warming. Resistance isn't necessarily a violent thing. It's trying to make things better. Each man had a book he wanted to remember, and he did. That's how Granger describes the bookmen and how they formed. And that harkens back to the first section in We Shall Light a Candle. It's small actions and things that you just can't do without that lead you to realize the world's wrong, to try and fix it, and to have hope for the future.
Wait, say that one more time, because I think you just answered my question that I had. Say what you just said one more time. You seem to be making a connection between the three.
Yeah, I think that the first section was about looking at the past and seeing how things should be. The middle part is about changing your present and realizing what's wrong with it. And then the last part, Burning Bright, is all about hope for the future. So when we reach the city, that's a really significant plot point, because Bradbury didn't choose to end the book with them going all Hunger Games and like shooting all the firemen in the head. He chose to end it with them with just everything completely desolated by the bombs, but then the bookmen just walking towards the city, trying to make things better. And I think that emphasizes the point that when you resist, it's not about destruction, it's not about that burning, it's about warming, making the world better. And it's not an event like a war always. Sometimes it's just people, sometimes it's a process and people just trying to reach the city, reach how things could be. So then the symbolism I have here was the railroad tracks to the city. They're just trying to reach that point where they can make things better. And then once again I use the moon as a symbol, and it's red with the fire below it, but it's actually a waxing moon, so it's small and there's not really much to save, but there's going to be more and things are going to get better. So that's,
okay.
yeah.
I get what you're saying. Okay. You answered that question. Can you discuss maybe a little bit more? I didn't hear anything at all actually about the actual imagery or figurative language used in the book. You talk about the imagery you chose to use in your painting, but in the language standard, you need to be able to notice how he uses word choice, which you did, and figurative language. So can you just think of one, like look at what you've got there. Where do you see an example of figurative language being used to further his point?
Okay, so the two pale moonstones.
There we go.
Also they're about how happiness can't be reflected, it has to come within, or from within. So then there's also the candle, which is about just small things that can make a change, but that aren't necessarily big on a larger scale. I feel like I had some more. Oh, and also the blazing meteor.
Okay. Symbols in there. Okay, that'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, you just had to identify it. It's so silly. Okay, awesome. Let's see. Your dad's gonna be here to pick you up in like 3 minutes. But